Welcome to the Technology and Energy Panel Talk as part of ISH Digital 2021. Once again today we have invited experts from the heating industry and will be speaking about a technology that has seen rapid market development over the past year. That is, of course, the heat pump. What is the role of a heat pump in a successful heating revolution? And of course, we will also be discussing other topics. That is what we want to talk about today. And that's why I would like to welcome my guests, Barbara Kaiser, Head of the Department Heat Pumps at the Federation of the German Heating Industry, BDH, and Dr. Martin Sabel, Managing Director of the German Heat Pump Association, BWP. Welcome. Mrs. Kaiser, perhaps you could start by giving us a brief introduction to the Department Heat Pumps at the BDH. The Department Heat Pumps consists of the manufacturers of heat pumps and heat pump systems, component manufacturers, as well as manufacturers of refrigerants and compressors. We keep a very close eye on the market. Together with the BWP, we have a market statistic on heat pumps. And we also work on technical or normative issues and, of course, monitor the current funding situation and further development. Dr. Sabel, what does the BWP focus on? Yes, the BWP represents the heat pump industry in Berlin across all value chains. We have energy suppliers in our association, technicians, construction companies, planners, architects, everything related to heat pumps, and our aim is to advance the technology. If you take a look at the current market, you can see that the heat pumps used in existing buildings crossed the 1 million mark in the past year. How was the year 2020 for heat pumps? Yes, it was very good overall. We sold 120,000 devices. That is 40% more than the previous year. This market growth is driven by the air-water heat pump. But there has also been an increase of about 18% in geothermal heat pumps. And we're particularly pleased that around a quarter of these devices are apparently being used to replace old oil heaters. This is particularly important. Mrs. Kaiser, apropos funding, at the beginning of the year the funding scheme up till then was merged with the Federal Funding for Efficient Buildings, BEG. Has this changed anything with regard to the funding of heat pumps? Yes, the first part of the BEG has come into force, namely the BEG for individual measures. Of course, the heat pump is also one of the eligible technologies. In this respect, not much has changed because some things were already known in the funding year 2020, for example, the funding conversion to a percentual, that is, proportional funding allocation corresponding to the eligible costs. What changed on the 1st of January was the conversion of the previously discussed coefficient of performance to the eta-S value. And the funding of heat pumps as an individual measure in new buildings is currently suspended. It will only be eligible for funding again from the 1st of January 2021 as part of the systemic funding. There is a new object of funding, the air-air heat pump. It was not eligible before because it only concerned hydraulic heat pump systems. Dr. Sabel, Mrs. Kaiser has just explained how the funding scheme supports the heat pump. Where do you think the obstacles currently lie? The obstacles are clearly still the energy prices. You will see the graphic displayed. Heat pump electricity is still extremely heavily burdened with levies and taxes, in other words, with politically created government price components. And here we're particularly focusing on the German Renewable Energy Sources Act reallocation charge, which is borne only by electricity customers. There's an urgent need for political intervention to change that and lower the electricity price. Mrs. Kaiser, let's turn briefly to the technical aspect of this sort of heat pump. How does it actually work? Perhaps you could briefly explain the working cycle. Yes, the heat pump process is a thermodynamic process in which a refrigerant circulates in a cooling circuit and absorbs the heat from the environment, that is, from the air, water and soil, and transfers it to the building's heat distribution system. You could say that the heat pump also greatly contributes to relieving the climate burden because it generates 3 to 5 kilowatts of heat for the building with 1 kilowatt of electricity. That is the operating energy required by an electric heat pump. There are various heat pump systems. Perhaps you could briefly describe for the audience which heat pump is suited for which application. You can basically differentiate between the heat sources. The heat pump name is based on this. Air is a heat source, so is brine soil, that is, as a collector or as a hole with a geothermal probe. Or there's the use of groundwater, the water-water heat pump. And the decision as to which type of heat pump is suited for the building or for the user, it also depends largely on the conditions. This decision should best be discussed with an expert technician. Questions such as the choice of location or the heat demand of the building are decisive here. Of course, the requirements of local regulations must also be taken into account. Or, and this is also a very important factor for the heat pump, whether, for example, the end user can also use the heat pump for cooling. This is because the heat pump is the only technology that can also be used for cooling. For that, the cycle that I just described is reversed. This means that heat is extracted from the indoor air or the interior of the building and then dissipated to the appropriate heat sink. Dr. Sabel, a majority of heat pumps are used in new buildings. How about existing buildings? Yes, that's right. In new buildings, the heat pump is already the #1 heating system. This is still not the case for existing buildings, but technology there is nothing that stands in the way of using heat pumps in existing buildings. You have to take a look at what the building is like and what would be the right technology for using a heat pump there. This is when expert technician is needed. But of course, existing buildings constitute the big market and the big future and actually also the big challenge. And that's where heat pumps need to be much more represented in the future. Here too, the high price of electricity is actually the only obstacle to the technology. So a technology with great potential. Where can an expert technician get accurate information on heat pumps? Expert technicians can get information on our website. We offer various ways for people to educate themselves and to find information. We have guidebooks, brochures, and technical guides that will help them. Together with the Association of German Engineers, we have created a training program where qualified technicians can get further training, especially in the field of heat pumps. We have also set up a special e-learning portal for trainees and teachers at vocational schools, where they can learn the basics of the heat pump in a playful way. The subsequent modules, however, take a deep dive into the subject and provide advanced content. The final question to Mrs. Kaiser: where can I find basic information about heat pumps? The two associations, BWP and BDH, have of course made various documents available on their respective homepages, especially in relation to the current funding situation. After the update of the funding, there are obviously many questions from end customers and users. And of course, the relevant documentation is also available on the websites of heat pump manufacturers. That actually brings us to the end of our program. Thank you for the information. Thank you for your interest. I hope you enjoy ISH Digital 2021.